Podcasserole. Welcome in.
You are listening to An Imperfect Leader, the Superintendents and Leadership Podcast, a proud member of the Podcasserole Network. Podcasserole Network? Podcasserole Network. Podcasserole Network. Hey, Jamie.
The network of casseroles.
So many of them. You know, I
What's
live
the-
over here in the Puget Sound, and there are pods of orcas out there today. So
That's
the
fun.
pod casserole
Oh, God.
orca
This is not going anywhere. This is not
Nope.
going to go anywhere.
just going to crash and burn.
Yeah. How about this? What's your favorite casserole? Do you have a favorite casserole?
No.
None?
I'll say tuna casserole because that's a thing, right?
Oh, Lord. You're saying a thing just because it exists. That's funny.
Hamburger casserole. Is that a thing? Cheeseburger casserole?
I'm
Is
sure
that a
it
thing?
is. I'm sure there's ever. Yes. I've had more than my fair share. I've worked. I mean, you must have had. I don't know whether Missouri would ever show like that. Does Missouri show it in the casserole game? No. This is taking too long to answer. So the answer is no. Minnesota, I've done a ton.
Big casserole state.
Hot dish.
Lots
actually.
of pod
Hot dish.
casseroles up there.
Hot dish. It's called hot dish. And I've had more than my fair share of a tater tot hot dish that I think is spectacular.
You know, anything tater tot. They have tater tots on the ferry that goes from Bainbridge Island to Seattle. And I've had to cut myself off like every time. I go at least once a week into Seattle. Every sailing, I'm like, tater tots. Maybe I'll get some tater tots.
That's such a bad thing.
They're so
I
good.
like that. Agreed.
That's so funny.
How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Thanks for asking. Yeah, we've got somebody to talk about today, Richard Ramos from
Miami.
Arizona.
Yeah. Don't do that. Don't you go.
I
The
know.
tone cannot go down.
Both are warm. One is humid. One is a dry heat. He lives in the
One is the copper capital of the world, or the copper corridor. Was that right?
That's right. That's what he said.
That was fascinating. I didn't know that, but makes sense. And obviously I didn't know there was a Miami, Arizona until today.
Yes. I'm going to keep going on a cooking theme because he talks about that, and so I want people to listen for that.
Oh,
I mean,
sure.
Not that it's a deep
Sure.
part of the conversation, although it's interesting because students do cooking for their events and things like that. And it made me think of, particularly because Thanksgiving is coming up for so many, and I used to have a big convening of all of the students who were exchange students in our school district. So, you know, kids were coming from Italy and Turkey and Egypt and Spain and Brazil. And we would all come together for a Thanksgiving feast. And it was always, the whole menu was crafted and then cooked by the highest level of culinary students. And the culinary program in our school district was just phenomenal. And these kids regularly won the nationals, the Skills USA competitions. I mean, this was just an amazing. Brooke Harlan was he is the culinary teacher there, but he was also a wrestling coach. And so he's just got this competitive edge to going at it.
Nice.
And so I would meet with the kids ahead of time. They would meet with the client, me, and we would talk through the menu. But the whole point was like, these kids are all about to eat foods that make no sense. So let's have a meal together to kind of explain what it is they're about to sort of experience. And then
At least they
also,
were- little scaffolding action. That's really
it was
good.
great. It was great. And what I loved about it was because it was, sadly, I think, the first time that all of them sort of got together as, you know, we were 300 square miles and not all of the high schools had opportunities to do things together. So now all these kids from around the world were coming together for this meal in early November, and we're meeting each other, and we would ask questions at the table about, tell us about celebrations in your home, or tell us about celebrations at your school. And it was just a wonderful way of coming together. So look, our conversation today with Richard Ramos kind of speaks to this. He talks about a business partner cafe and about the value of bringing people together and learning from each other. And so it just made me think of those students, and particularly at this time of the year, that's one of the things you miss. You know, when you're not in it, you kind of miss those moments where you get to be with just super kids and just what they're doing and the adventure that they're on in their own life, being so far away from their homes.
I love it. Let's listen in. Let's jump right in. I have no need to comment. That was great. Let's go.
You're listening to An Imperfect Leader, the Superintendents and Leadership Podcast. I'm Peter Stiepelman,
And I'm Jamie Alanson.
and we will see you on the other side. Today on An Imperfect Leader, we're joined by Dr. Richard Ramos, Superintendent of the Miami Unified School District in Miami, Arizona. The Copper Center of the World is what I read. So is that true?
Absolutely. That is the truth. We're the Copper Corridor, and we're made up of 6 school districts within that Copper Corridor.
Amazing. It's about an hour and a half east of Phoenix, so the Copper Corridor, and it's in its own right. It's fantastic. Richard, welcome to An Imperfect Leader.
Thank you so much for having me today, Peter.
I'm really thankful that Andrew Murata introduced us to each other. It's been really fun to learn more about you and your work in Miami, Arizona. One thing I learned about you is how important collaboration is to you, both inside and then outside your school system. You've highlighted the importance of community engagement, and you established the Business Partner Café to bridge the gap between district and business stakeholders. What is a Business Partner Café? And then also, how do these strong community ties and partnerships enhance the educational experiences that you're able to build?
So a Business Partner Cafe is a time for people to come in and have some conversation around the initiatives of the school district. In addition, we also want them to share what is happening in the community. So it's kind of twofold. It's a way for us to break bread together. So our culinary team right here from the high school actually makes the food for the business partners, and they eat and they converse and share ideas back and forth. And the way this is truly transitioned is I no longer have to host anymore. The students are hosting the business partner cafes, which is awesome to see the ownership and the agency that the students are taking in the business partner cafe. But I have to step back a little bit and share with you a story. And I think one of the things that's really significant about the business partner cafe is when I came to the Miami Unified School District, I saw that the relationship between the school and what was happening within was fractured, and the communication and the connection that the business partners provided, there was some fracture there. There needed to be some repair. And so the Business Partner Cafe was our way of getting our business partners to support us once again, because they have to know what is happening within the organization to be that guiding coalition, and then also to be the messengers in the community to share what is happening within the school district, share the things that are going right. And so really, that's what we really wanted to have happen, is we wanted them to communicate what was going on within the 4 walls of the school district.
So first of all, I think you're totally right in that when we think about raising taxes, when a superintendent is launching an informational campaign, right? Because really important to note, we can't tell people how to vote, but we can certainly nudge them by letting them know exactly what's important and how we're trying to achieve that. And if you're trying to increase opportunity and revenue, a business owner, for which most of our communities are mostly made up of small business owners, now are being taxed certainly as a homeowner and then as a business owner. So it is super important that they get behind and understand what you're trying to achieve, because it really impacts them significantly, not just in terms of how they might recruit future employees, but also just what they're going to have to contribute, a real investment in your community. And so I'm curious, I love the fact, by the way, that you're using student voice to really drive this, because they're the ones who also are going to inherit your school district potentially as parents down the road. I'm curious though, is there sort of each time you meet an overarching theme so that you're harvesting the wisdom of your students and it's somewhat focused? Otherwise, I can imagine it goes all over the place.
Yeah, the students have always been a part of the experience because I wanted them to see what is possible in education. I come from a place where if we can build student agency, then we're going to find success in the school district. And so the way that they were a part of it in the beginning is they sat at the tables and they facilitated the table conversation with a script. And so that's how students were a part of it. But something unique happened over the course of time was the students started to develop ownership in the process. And they asked me if they could start making presentations. And so I was like, holy cow, if you're at a place where the students are asking for a space, get out of the way and let them do it. And in the very beginning, what we were doing at the time, I was the director of innovation and learning at the time, and we were developing a strategic plan. And so we used the teachers to start the plan and to give us all the ideas for the strategic plan. And at one of our first business partner cafes, we put a draft in front of the community. And so at that time, we had about 40 business partners attend. And so that was pretty decent. We had 40 people invested from the community. They came in and they saw the first draft of the strategic plan. By putting that in front of them, we had them sold on the idea of, oh my gosh, they're developing a strategic plan with performance indicators and proposed actions and goals and everything. This looks like a business plan. We want to be a part of this. And so that's how we were able to get them to invest in the Business Partner Cafe. And then the students at the table facilitating the conversation were asking like the what, the so what, and now what? And the students were reporting out based on the conversations that were happening at the table. And so it really picked up traction over the course of time, where we just had a Business Partner Cafe in March that was so sophisticated that our students got up and presented in groups about what is happening with career and technical education in the building. So we had our culinary team, our construction team, our Future Farmers of America, our coding team. They all got up and presented what is happening with CTE. And then we had students at the table still facilitating conversation around what, so what, now what, in order for us to refine those programs. In addition to that, we fed them with a full-blown meal. The culinary team developed a menu. And so we had the opportunity to eat within that hour and a half time frame as well. So our kids were in complete charge of what was happening during the whole entire experience. And for the first time, I had the opportunity to get out of their way and let them have their own meeting with the community.
You have to be so proud of what has been achieved by your entire team. That's just really wonderful.
I think what I'm most proud of is how quick the students grew and how quickly they grasped the idea of facilitation and presentation. Like, to have them at this space, I look forward to nurturing their skills even further over the upcoming school years and seeing what we can do with that.
Do you also invite this Business Cafe to share their time, not just their treasure, because certainly businesses begin to suspect, oh, what do they want from me? But their time within your buildings? Do they volunteer? Sort of like a partner in education kind of thing?
So the students definitely volunteer their time.
Oh, yeah, but I meant your business partners, those who are coming to your Business Cafe. Do they have a presence within your buildings?
The Business Partner Cafe, the businesses come to the building because they want to have input. They also see that they're also able to give some ownership because they helped us revise our strategic plan in the beginning. And now they're seeing that some of their input is actually developed in some of our artifacts.
Gotcha.
And so they're giving us input, and we asked them very specifically, how can our CTE program grow and develop over the course of time? They gave us input, and they also share resources with us so that way those programs could utilize the resources in the community.
Yeah, I bet at some point it becomes student internships within their companies and those types of things. And then you've got this really deep reciprocal relationship between school and community.
Let me just give you one example. With the construction company or the construction course, we got a phone call right after from an organization that works with the youth in the community and said, we have a bunch of lumber that we want to donate to the school district because we weren't able to use it all. So the Cobra Valley Youth Program made the lumber available for our kids to pick up, and they can utilize it in their construction courses.
How neat. Our guest today is Dr. Richard Ramos, Superintendent of the Miami Unified School District in Miami, Arizona. And in the leadership model that I use to advise others, there's a dimension, it's called nested patterns. It's really like the muscle of the work. It really says to the whole organization, how do we want to be together? And in that dimension, there are two terms, courage and creativity. And to learn that you've been the director of innovation, that's exactly what this speaks to. It speaks to innovation, the willingness to take some risks, to try new things, to strive to look at things differently. And I read about innovation labs that were created in Miami. I mean, I did a deep dive, man. And so the concept for Innovation Lab, I think, was inspired, if I remember correctly, by a visit that you and your town manager took to Arizona State University to their innovation center. And you mentioned that the Innovation Lab at the Miami Junior and Senior High School is a unique experience. I guess my first question is, what makes it unique? And then how does it directly contribute to your goal of equipping students with the skills that they'll need to thrive or we'll use Murata's strive and thrive in the future?
So that's a great question. So we're getting our second innovation lab thanks to the Freeport-McMoran, which is a mining community. They provided us with a community investment grant to build a second one. So now we'll have cohesiveness from pre-K all the way over to 12th grade. And so we're pretty excited about that. That's going to be installed this coming fall. And I think to answer your question is, I just want to go ahead and share what we're doing with education so that way we can go ahead and make sure there's some sense of clarity. So we believe that learning happens more collaboratively, which is a step away from tradition where the teacher provides all of the information and the students take notes and learn and then produce for some type of assessment. So it's really shifted for space for the teacher to be more of a facilitator and provide students with the opportunity to research over like a given topic. So we believe that students should be empathizing with each other. And so students work together, ask one another questions over a topic, and really take a deep dive and define like a specific problem that they're trying to like research. And together as a group of, it could be anywhere from 3 to 5 students, they brainstorm ideas on ways they can solve that problem that they defined. And then they take it a step even further and they develop like a model or a prototype of that solution. And it's something that is hands-on or project-based that they work on over the course of time. And then they take that model and they present it to an audience. And the reason for that is so that way they can get some feedback on making the model better. And so we use our innovation labs as spaces of mobility where the students can actually like move about the room, redevelop like arrangements of furniture so that way they can go ahead and work based on need, and then also have access to the resources when they're building that prototype in order for them to develop their presentations. And so it's a space where kids are safe to move about. They use like whiteboards to brainstorm their ideas, and then they use the resources in the room, everything from like glue to like cardboard to tape to like paint in order to develop their prototypes. And then they use their technology to record what is happening so that way they can go ahead and make a presentation out of it. And that could come in the form of a PowerPoint presentation. And so for the first time ever, we did that with summer school this year. A lot of times kids or adults focus on the punitive, and I have to go to summer school because of something that I didn't do. And then you get prescribed curriculum, and it's usually the same curriculum in which you didn't do well or perform.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And so you have to go
with no new instruction or understanding.
So we turned that model around, and we actually did something that was transformative. This year's summer program was focused on creating. And so we did an everyone can create model. And I learned this through Apple technology in the past. And so we did an everyone can create model where instead of focusing on the punitive, let's focus on the strengths of the child and what they can do. And let's build on that. And so we invited every student to summer school this year, and we gave them the opportunity to create. And what our kindergarten through second grade created was a mural that we're going to actually replicate in the hallways of their building. But they came up with this phenomenal, like, happy peace mural where kids are like holding hands with each other across like a plane with a nice like rainbow up top and sun shining and like mountainsides in the background. And so we're going to actually take that because that was their finished prototype. And we're going to replicate it in the school building so that way they can see. But it took them 3 weeks to go from, okay, what problem do we want to define? What do we want to like develop in terms of like brainstorming? And then how do we make this mural? And so the kids developed that. We're going to replicate it. So that was K2. The 3 through 5 experience was about kids defining a problem in the community. And those students developed a food pantry. And so they took an idea that they had and actually went through the whole brainstorming process and developed models out of shoe boxes, out of what a food pantry should look like, and actually developed like a bag of food and everything that should come in it, from contents to recipes. And
I love it. I love it. I mean, I have chills.
I mean, it was phenomenal.
And your energy and enthusiasm about it is intoxicating. Truly, oh my God, it's addictive. I mean, so are you familiar with the book An Ethic of Excellence, Ron Berger's book? You got to go read it, and everyone in your district is going to all of a sudden be like, oh, this is exactly what we're doing. Ron Berger wrote a book in, I don't know, maybe 2000 called An Ethic of Excellence, which really speaks to ethic, not ethics, but like just a work ethic, but what excellence looks like. And it's these obvious iterations to show progress. It's the kind of positive connectedness between and among students to give each other feedback that is meaningful, that is truthful, that is empathetic. And it's all driven by this desire to do project-based learning, defining a problem, working together, creating something, the craftsmanship of school and learning, and then presenting publicly. And how that has transformed. And he advises everybody around the country now about how to do this. But I'm like, oh my God, Richard Ramos' district is a ethic of excellence district. It's so cool. And he doesn't do it for any kind of big money. He's just an inspiring educator who just, everybody sort of, people like you kind of were like, yeah, I'm glad to know there are other people like me out there who really want to redefine learning for kids, not just doing the same old, but having teachers as activators of knowledge, not just a lecture or a sage on the stage, and continuing to give kids information in an antiquated model that no longer exists today, that shouldn't exist today.
Yeah. It's really interesting because this morning when I came to work, the first thing that I did was send an email to those 5 teachers that took the risk with me and facilitated the 3 weeks of creation. I just let them know that like they exceeded my expectation. Like I was like, didn't know what to expect on that day of presentation, which was this past Thursday. And what I saw kids doing and what I saw like teachers facilitating was absolutely astounding in such a positive way. And we invited our parents, the parents who sent their students to school over that 3-week period were invited to come watch the presentations. And I saw the gratitude in their faces, and it made the experience all the more worthwhile.
I'm so proud of your district. It's so just truly awesome. That's just awesome. And what a cultural field you're creating. First of all, to show gratitude to your teachers is one of our roles as superintendents, is to bless the good work that we see. It's true. I mean, that is our job. And then also what children will see in that K2 hallway, the K2 kids who see a reflection of their work will have a ripple effect for many years in terms of this is a school for and by children. It's so neat. It's so great. Let me ask you a question that I ask every guest who comes on our show. What does the term an imperfect leader mean to you? How does it resonate for you?
Well, I think an imperfect leader is just somebody who's realistic and who's makes sure that they're visible within the community and hears the daily issues, concerns, successes, highlights, and celebrates with the community. I think small wins are so like critical and important, and sometimes they're impromptu. And I think that you need to celebrate with your community. So being a risk taker, making sure that you're always keeping what is in the best interest of the child at heart and doing whatever it takes in order to get there. It's not going to be a perfect journey. It's not going to be, I think every experience that has been like, had an effective outcome has been messy in some way. And I think that if you're looking for everything to be like boxed and fit in a perfect package, like it's just not going to happen. We work with kids, we work with people. We have to have empathy. And so just recognizing that the road is going to be curvy. It's not from A to B and it's not direct.
And we'll be right back. Hey, district leaders, I know you already know this. In schools worldwide, cell phones are posing real challenges on student engagement and mental well-being. And I want you to meet Yonder, a proud sponsor of An Imperfect Leader. And let me share this story from a visit I made to some schools in Silicon Valley. I asked some kids what they liked about Yonder, and after some funny looks, they shared that actually, with Yonder, teachers don't have to battle with them over phones anymore. In fact, one kid said to me he didn't have to worry anymore about his parents texting him in class, and the kid next to him sort of shoved him and goes, "Texting? My mom used to FaceTime me in class." I want to introduce you to a support system that increases teaching and learning. I want you to discover why 1 million students choose Yonder daily. Minimize distractions, maximize learning potential. To learn more, go to overyonder.com. YONDR.
So I want to talk a minute about the Mosaic Project. It is one of our favorite organizations and has over 25 years of experience empowering students to really celebrate differences, communicate assertively, and resolve conflict peacefully at their outdoor school. I happen to have experience being part of the Mosaic Project, and so I can absolutely tell you it's an amazing organization. Their innovative SEL curriculum is now available to our Imperfect Leader audience. And so you can get a 10% discount through their new documentary film-based Mosaic Classroom project. So just let the people know during your onboarding process to receive that 10% discount is to just mention an Imperfect Leader. Learn more about the Mosaic Project at mosaicproject.org.
This is Greg Meyer, Jamie's partner at APC Leadership Collaborative. Superintendents know that school principals are the single biggest lever that any school district has for improving student joy and success. Unfortunately, there's very little professional development for the specific things that a principal has to do to improve their school. At APC Leadership Collaborative, we specialize in coaching principals to take on audacious goals, build their leadership skills, and make big improvements in their school. If that inspires you, let's connect and talk about how we can collaborate. Find APC Leadership Collaborative online at apccolab.com.
When leaders think in systems, they think differently. They see the big picture, making decisions that create coherence and strengthen communication across their teams. They build adaptability, flexibility, and engagement. Every day, school leaders face complex challenges, from student engagement to staff alignment. What if your team could see those challenges as part of a bigger picture? That's what happens when you think in systems. It's how leaders turn complexity into connection and challenges into opportunities for growth. At the Waters Center for Systems Thinking, we help educators and organizations build this capacity, developing the habits and tools that turn vision into action. Think differently, think in systems. Sign up for our webinars, free resources, or a consultation by visiting our website, which you can find in the show notes.
We're back for segment 2 of an Imperfect Leader called Imperfect Leadership in After Action. My guest today is Dr. Richard Ramos, Superintendent of the Miami Unified School District in Miami, Arizona. Now, in this segment, as we do each week, we ask our guests to deconstruct a decision they made and then what they learned from it. Richard, what happened?
Yeah, at the time I was serving as the Executive Director of Innovation and Learning in a large district in South Phoenix. And here's what happened. I was in charge of facilities. And a lot of times when you're in charge of facilities, you also need to work with marketing. And marketing was the department right next door. And so I was overseeing facilities because we were on a mission to make the spaces more innovative. And one of the things we wanted to do is we wanted to bring all of our marquees up to speed. We wanted to renovate them in a way. We had a new logo. We wanted them to we wanted the logo to be adorned on these marquees. So we were going to upgrade them. And we went about searching for a logo, and we thought we had the right logo. And so I worked with my facilities director. We worked with a vendor to go ahead and improve the new logos. And we had exactly the place that they were going to be adorned on the side of the marquees. We went through the whole production. And then the logos, I took them to the executive team meeting where we were displaying what we were going to do. And the logo was an older version, the logo that was approved. So the marketing director noticed the fonts were different in terms of the name of the district. The fonts used were different than the new one. And the logo was a pencil. Some of the shading at the top of the logo was also different. And the marketing director would notice that, right? So after the meeting, the marketing director asked me, "Where did you get this logo?" And I said, "I'd done all the research and I looked all over the place and I believed that I had the final logo." And she goes, "It's not the final one." She goes, "I'm here to share with you, we need to do some research and see how far along the production happens to be. So that way we can go ahead and slide in the final logo." And so this project was already at $50,000 to just replace logos on all of the marquees. And we had 16 schools at the time. And when I called the production company, they said that the molds had already been made and that if we wanted to go ahead and make that transition, the modification would cost another $50,000 because it would mean that we'd have to create new molding.
Yeah, but it's interesting. So I'm going to stop you for a second. Two things come to mind. First, as you were first describing the story, it made me think of, do you remember when Chevrolet they couldn't figure out why they couldn't sell the Chevy Nova in Latin America? Nobody would buy the Nova because Nova, it doesn't go. Nova doesn't go is the translation in Spanish. Nova, it doesn't work, doesn't go. So no one's going to buy that car. So it made me think, oh my God, where marketing sort of doesn't consider the context or the place where it's being sold. So as you were telling the story initially, I'm like, oh, the Chevy Nova. Then it made me think of, oh my gosh, what somebody listening might say, how is this a big story? First of all, you start to shift to go, $50,000 isn't just the cost. Now I'm talking about another $50,000 because of human error or we just missed something. And so as you're saying, as you're about to tell me what got overlooked, let me ask you, what got overlooked?
Yeah. So what got overlooked was working with the department that was right next door. Like we shared a wall. And so all I needed to do was communicate. And so communication was the part that we overlooked. And if I had just asked for what is the latest version of our logo from her, she would have provided it and it would have made everything work out just fine. But I think that the lesson that I learned that was so critical in this was coaching, because I called the superintendent immediately to let him know about the mistake that had been made. And he says, what did you learn from this experience? Tell me about that. And so I shared with him that I learned to include more people. I learned to communicate effectively. I learned to develop this as a team, where the facility director should have been working with the marketing director and then myself. And we should have all been like in this room collaborating together. And he says, if that's what you're taking away from this, he goes, that's exactly the purpose of like leadership. He says, make sure that all people are communicating, make sure that people are working together. Don't ever work in isolation. The power from within this organization is team. And so I thought that his coaching probably was what I needed to learn as well, in addition to communicating and involving more people.
Yeah, I mean, I think of the leadership adage about making decisions with the people most impacted, and so meaning with them. And so that's really a question of relationships as well. And I'm curious, as we explore maybe this a little bit more, what did you learn about relationships?
I think what I learned about relationships was that, that people are going to bring blemishes to the table. And the way that you deal with that blemish depends on whether the organization is going to thrive, and the relationship and trust is in the organization in order to succeed. And so I learned a lot about trust during that experience.
In terms of trusting others to be a part of this decision-making together?
Trusting others to be a part of the decision-making together. And then also trusting that like sometimes mistakes are going to be made in the organization and they're going to be embraced as learning experiences.
I imagine that kind of mentorship you got from the superintendent is something that you carry to the work that you do now, when people make errors, as opposed to, not that this is your nature. However, we've all worked for people who will belittle us or demean us or say this can't happen, and we already feel terrible. And you had this leader who said to you, what'd you learn from this? As opposed to you idiot. And maybe that was part of the conversation. I doubt it. I imagine though you carried this to the work that you do.
It definitely is replicated, like, in my current context, because I learned so much from that experience. I think that there's only 3 people who recognize that is not the logo that is the latest version. It's me, the marketing director, and the superintendent, because it's never been brought up again.
Oh, I should have asked you. So the company says, look, if you want to redo the mold, it's going to be another $50,000. And now I'm taking away that you said, then forget it. We'll keep the ones that we sent you.
No, they were like, it's a mistake that was made. Just don't let it happen again. We're going to keep the molds because it's not that significantly different.
Oh, that's great. Meanwhile, I'm so glad that we came back to that part, because I would have thought, oh, they spent $100,000. So this was, look, we're not going to, it's so insignificant. No one will notice except for the 3 of us.
Yeah. It's just the way it was. And the 3 of us never talk about it, like moving forward.
Well, now everybody knows because it's going to be on the podcast. So this is the big reveal.
No, but it was such an incredible learning experience that just like resonates with me. As soon as you shared the question, I was like, I know what I'm going to talk about.
It's interesting to me because my takeaway was that you then made another $50,000 decision, and $50,000, that's the price of a teacher for a year.
Right.
So I always put those kinds of decisions into that kind of context for myself when I was serving as superintendent to say, is this worth a classroom missing a teacher or us being able to reduce class size in one building? Because it's got to be that significant for us to make that decision.
Yeah, and it just wasn't. I mean, we were
Right.
like, that's significant. Let's just move forward. It's pretty close to the version. Just next time, bring in all of your team members.
I love it. In the end, what would you say was something that was good that came out of that experience?
I think what was good is I learned better coaching strategies for myself. Like I gained more tools for my toolbox.
Let me ask you a question. What advice would you give to an aspiring leader?
That's a loaded question, but here's what
Okay.
yeah, the advice I would give to an aspiring leader is just to recognize that if you're being the best version of yourself every single day and you have kids at the forefront, the work is never going to be done. There's always something to do in education, especially if you're working like in an environment that allows you to take risks and to become transformational and to do the work alongside of the teachers, is that there's always going to be more work to be done. And so if you think that you're going to complete something by the end of the day, it's just going to be ongoing, because when you do take on something and complete it to the best of your ability, a door is going to open and there's going to be opportunity to do more. So the work is never complete. It's ongoing. Just continue to take risks, be the best version of yourself, and move forward.
Nick Poliak, first of all, I agree with you. And Nick Poliak, who's a superintendent in Illinois and a real leader in SA, he said something very similar in terms of our careers, is that it will never be done. And it really is. Some people say that it's a marathon. Some say that it's a sprint. But really what he says, it's a relay race. It's a relay race because what we do is we hand the baton to the next person to go do great work. And so maybe we're the first, we're the second, we're the third, we're the fourth, but none of us really serve as the anchor on that relay team because that work is just perpetually ongoing. And so we just do the very best, and then we hand it to the next person to stand on our shoulders to do great work moving forward.
Yeah, I'm so excited about sometimes passing on that relay because I want to have the organization at a place where I give the opportunity for somebody else to build on top of what we've done.
I love it. Our guest today was Dr. Richard Ramos, superintendent of the Miami Unified School District in Miami, Arizona. And Richard, there were a couple of things that I wrote down as you were talking. One is this idea of appreciative lens or appreciative inquiry. What's going well with kids and how do we get more of it? And you're reframing how summer learning might look and how that might bleed into the regular school year as well. That project-based learning and giving kids the opportunity to demonstrate their intelligence in a different way. I love the mural. I love the food pantry. You mentioned that there's a shoebox, and I read somewhere where as an empathy project, which is something that you also talked about in terms of teachers being activators of knowledge and then allowing children to empathize with each other, to define problems, and then to present that problem. Using the shoebox as a symbol initially to say, there's a shoe in here, so let's consider walking in the shoes of other people. And so having that shoebox symbolize that, and then create that food pantry, that model, but to also put ourselves into the shoes of others who are going to be the beneficiaries of that food, because people don't necessarily, they know how to empathize and they'll do it. But what I read is that they don't necessarily do it without being prompted. When we ask people to empathize, they do it marvelously. And so I just think that this whole project that you're doing is just tremendous. And what an honor to meet you. Truly enjoyed our time together.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate it. It's been awesome to have this conversation with you today.
All right, we're back.
We're back. Want to talk about Dr. Ramos?
Yes. And I might actually want to include that Back to the Future piece. So that was kind of cool.
All right. Dee Dee took Leo to a screening of the 40th anniversary of Back to the Future this morning.
Oh, yeah. 40 or 50?
40, I think. Yeah, 20. Yeah, 40. And we were talking about, that's a 30-year gap, 85 to 55 in the movie, right? So he goes back to 1955. 55, a 30-year gap for us would be 1995. And that does not have the same feel as 85 to 55. And I'm interested to know, I'm going to ask my mom about this. What made that feel, like that really felt, oh, wow, he's in a different world. But if you went back to 1995, is it a different world? A little bit, here and there, but how different?
That's interesting. And I think it would be good to get lots of different people's perspectives because there were certain advances in terms of technology and things like that. I imagine in certain office places, I mean, when you still can look at the data about for every dollar a man makes, that women make so much less. And what was it in 95? And the women in leadership and leaders of color and what is happening now in terms of purging women and leaders in color, particularly in the armed forces and things like that. I don't know. I wonder if they would have said, oh, you think it was not so much different, and yet it is, and yet that's what we're worried about is we're heading back to 55.
Yeah, I'm blown away by the idea. It's interesting. 30 years is not, now, as I look, it's a good chunk of time, but as a 55-year-old man, I'm like...
I know, well, you don't want to admit that it's that long ago.
It's not that long ago.
That's it.
All right, we'll see. Can I start with what I think is my favorite part of what Dr. Ramos had to share? I'm going to read the quote directly. He says, if you're at a place where students are asking for a space, get out of the way and let them do it. This is probably my favorite advice of everything that he shared. Exactly. That example of the community cafe, right?
The business cafe. Yeah,
business
the
cafe.
business partner cafe.
Yeah.
To me, it's super interesting from a superintendent's perspective because of the system, the external system that you need to support the internal work that you're trying to do.
Yeah, I think that's great too.
Yeah.
In fact, let me finish with the line and then I want to ask a question about that. So the line, all I'm saying is that this is something that we discovered as well as we were doing our work with student leadership. And that was when we do this work that we call the Student Six. And the Student Six is just a model of students identifying instruction that works for them. And they talk about it and share, here's what the instructional practices that make the biggest difference for them. And then they sort of describe what those are. And in the first iteration of this, we took that information. We're like, okay, great. We're going to share it back with the staff. And then we realized, we're like, why the heck would we even say anything? They're ready to talk about it. Why would
I say you're so smart because that makes total sense. And I never did that. I had a table of kids and I would make space for a table of kids, of students to participate in the conversation. And you took it this next step of, wait, why aren't they actually engaged and doing this work? And then this next step of, and then why are they leading this work? Why am I stealing their voice and now leading this work? And
I didn't even think it was stealing. I was like, I will not say it as well. They are very clear.
Oh, I think, I don't think anyone's intent is to say, look at what I came up with, right? No, it is, I'm going to do such justice to your voice and that you had presence of mind to be like, wait a second. Why do I need to carry their message? They can do it and they'll do it better because they know what they meant. I imagine you're going to say, in terms of Richard Ramos and the work that they're doing, the fact that they had students leading at the tables, that was even next level. That was
students at the tables, students, the culinary program, designing, creating the menu and the dinner so they feed the people from the community, the business leaders from the community. All of it just felt like so student driven. I just loved it, which does lead me to a question you said about being a superintendent and why you loved it. What are the ways? What are the ways that superintendents do this? Engage the business community. We've talked about the double tax thing that you mentioned in the episode. That business leaders who live in the community are being taxed because they're homeowners, and again being taxed because they're business owners. And as a business owner, I fully understand this. What I'm interested to know though is what did you do? How did you target and support the business community? And what were you looking for from them that would make them feel like they were a part of it?
Right. So two ways, or possibly even more than that, but two come to mind immediately. One, as a superintendent, I actively participated with the Chamber of Commerce, not just in their monthly meetings where I was an ex officio and always had an opportunity to present and share. They also encouraged me to participate in conversation. And I always went because I had heard that my predecessor, not my immediate predecessor, but one before me, didn't go to those meetings, and they would leave a chair with that person's nameplate and make it clear that person wasn't there. And then when that leader came to ask them for their support for a tax increase, they would sort of remind that individual, now you come to see us. And so it was sort of imprinted in me. If you want to be a part of this community and you want the schools to be stitched with the community, be present, be here, and participate. Okay, so that's the first. And I guess I would also add, they would also in turn be present for our celebrations and things like that. So they had an ambassador program for every time we would break ground or open a school or had something to celebrate. They would come in these sort of mustard jackets. I mean, an army of the business community. And they would stretch a ribbon and they would bring those oversized
Scissors.
and they would say, this guy, Wally, would say to us, okay, here's what you're going to say. A future learning environment for kids. Smile, cut. I mean, it was like, and so we go, a future learning environment for kids. Smile, cut. And you would take pictures and it would be documented and everything. Yeah. And you'd get points for going to as many as you could. And so it became a big part of how to connect the community and the schools. It was marvelous. The second piece, because that's the business community and the community at large, for those who are not small business owners and not part of the business community. And we would host world cafes. And that is the most amazing. It's similar to, I think, how he was describing the business piece. But a world cafe is it is about giving a very small presentation and then getting out of the way and letting the dialogue drive where you're going to go as a decision-making body. And so we would provide one big question for the community. And then we'd provide time to transition to other tables so you get to hear what other people were thinking, what other people are advocating for. And I always had a kids table, which was dumb. I mean, it was good that we thought about kids, but we should have integrated them into the tables. We should have had them facilitate the conversation and still participate actively in the conversation to give their thoughts and opinions as children who live in the system. So if I could go back, I would do that differently. But I'll tell you, the biggest support for any big initiative that we were thinking about came from that. And then the community who were present, they ran with it. I mean, they would sell it. And then, of course, I would go and do the 5 Rotary clubs, the 4 Kiwanis clubs, 2 Lions clubs, and there were so many community groups that I would go talk to and felt great that I was invited to come talk, right? That tells you that they trust you enough that they want to hear from you.
Yeah, exactly. That's great. That's really great. The feeling like you're a part of a bigger network, as a business owner, like that's part of it. Like I think it can feel very isolating. You're often just doing your job and trying to actually make the business go. Then number 2, so now I'm connected to all these business leaders and I don't know, it'd be interesting to note how many feel this way, but what is probably the primary community connector, the schools, is saying, hey, we want you to be a part of this too. So now I feel not only am I connected to other business leaders, but I'm also connected to the community and they see me as worth something besides a paycheck.
Yeah. They see what their taxes are not just seen as something that they have to pay, but rather an investment in their community. And Correct. So when this chamber in particular I got to be a part of something pretty cool. They would do an annual trip to another city that was similar to Columbia. And so your city manager would go and your county executives would go and your mayor might go and your police chief, and we'd all go. We would spend almost 2 days, full 2 days, visiting the schools, meeting with university officials, learning about their community and how they were trying to tackle things like the unhoused and how to, lead with dignity. And it was amazing. And typically, last day we would come together and there would be like a recommendation for the community. And often it was something the schools could do. It was kind of funny. I was like, it's interesting how each year it's something the schools could do. And yet it really was something really powerful. So an example would be early college. We went to Washtenaw County in Michigan. We visited Ann Arbor for a few days. We go to the school that is at Washtenaw County Community College, where high school students in their junior and senior year were going there full time and getting their associate's degree while getting their high school diplomas so they could graduate with their AAE, and then they could go into their junior year of college debt-free. And everyone was looking at me like, we got to do that. And of course, because this trip included our local community college and the chamber, and we spent a full year figuring out how to do it. And now I think it's the greatest legacy that I get credit for, that I just was smart enough to say, okay, yeah, let's do it. Right. Yeah. And I kept wanting to call it. Like, I was like, yeah, I mean, people would stop me on the street. You saved me so much money. My kid got to graduate high school and go to college and be in their junior year. Or my kid was not connected to school. And the fact that they got to be a college student in their junior year of high school And they still had all rights and privileges. They could be in the band, they could be in the school play, they could go back to their high school and get support and help if they didn't understand something. I mean, it was amazing. They still participated in the meal plan, all of that. We paid for their books. It was great. Well, that happened because, I probably could have brought it to the board and tried to convince the schools and all the kind of thing. Here was the community, like this groundswell of, oh my gosh, we got to do this for our kids. And we had the wisdom to say, and we will together. Let's do it.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
So anyway, I enjoyed meeting Richard. I love what they were doing. His after action was for maybe those who are not in schools or like the logo, and then it didn't work, and then it cost money, and so you just decide not to do it. I can tell you that so many of us have stories like that where we're just like, there was something didn't get changed, and the change order came in, and then all of a sudden it cost this, and you're thinking to yourself, if I had just taken a moment to communicate, collaborate, have a process, sometimes you feel overburdened by what is considered a bureaucratic process. And then in these cases, you go, this is why bureaucracy sometimes is important.
I'll end on this with Dr. Ramos. We ask, what does an imperfect leader mean to you for every person? You ask everybody that question. And there are most that aren't that interesting. Like everybody's all for it. But everybody's answer is kind of the same. So that's the thing. And I really liked his answer. His answer was, and this goes to this example of the logo. He says, I think an imperfect leader is just somebody who's realistic. And what an example of this is just an everyday mistake. But that everyday mistake is very public, and it costs another $50K. So now you're at $100K.
Right. Right. And then in the end, they didn't do it. They didn't make the change, and nobody noticed, right?
No, because there are 3 people in the whole district that noticed.
I was like,
until now.
That $50K, that's a teacher. Without the benefits and all that, but it's like that. Oh my God. How could you stand up in front of your public and say, yeah, we don't need that reading interventionist this year, but look at the logo.
I like the pencil with the better shading. Yeah, exactly. So I really liked his answer about being realistic. That's kind of my whole thing. Like I'm ready for us to stop analyzing the problems of public school and start solving them, start doing some stuff. Because when we do the stuff, even in failure, it's way better than us still trying to figure out what to do.
Beautiful. An imperfect leader, a real leader.
Yes.
There it is. Okay. You've been listening to An Imperfect Leader, the Superintendents and Leadership podcast. We'd love for you to give us 5 stars. We'd love for you to write whatever comment you'd like. We'd like to know what's on your logo. But
yeah, what's your favorite casserole? Do you like tots?
Oh, that's right. Jamie, I'll see you next week.
Yeah, see you next week.
Music for An Imperfect Leader was written and arranged by Ian Varley. Sam Falbo created our artwork, a wood print inspired Daruma doll butterfly. Remember, imperfect leadership is not a scarlet letter. It's a badge of honor. It recognizes that serving as a lead learner is about being a vulnerable leader, an empathetic leader, a compassionate leader. We are proud to be imperfect leaders, so join us next time for another episode of An Imperfect Leader, the Superintendent and Leadership Podcast.